our hopes to the ground, but we can work it out. 'Cause giving in is oh so hard, but love is at stake. Where there's a will, there's a way. Now if we only knew how. Learning the ropes, learning to laugh and fear, learning to fight through these years. Let's bring us closer together. Learning the ropes, learning the first golden rule, knowing that anything is possible. 'Cause nothing's gonna keep us from, nothing's gonna keep us from learning the ropes.
Oh, yes. Throw it up, throw it up. Greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome back to Learning the Ropes. Welcome to a very special Saturday night edition of Learning the Ropes. And we're going to conclude our talk on factions this month, and we are going to talk about, yes, you heard it, Bullet Club. This is going to be a fun, action-packed episode because we got so much to talk about with pretty much over a 10-year history of the Bullet Club, and we're going to dive deep on that. Now, first and foremost, I want to give a shout-out to my partner in crime, Mr. B-Roll. Unfortunately, wasn't able to join us tonight, but just know, buddy, I got your back, and you are in our thoughts and prayers, my friend. So, as always here on Learning the Ropes, let's kick it off with a little bit of a plug-a-palooza. And hey, you're watching this now, you know our Memorial Day weekend extravaganza is going on right now on Cole TV. Right now, you can catch some replays of our Night of Champions prediction show, as well as a brand new episode of Friday Night Movie Night. And hey, tomorrow, tune in here at noon Eastern Standard Time for our Double or Nothing prediction show. And don't forget to flip back over here on Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a brand new episode of Pro Wrestling 60, live and in color, if you will, where we'll be talking about everything that happened in the world of professional wrestling that week in 60 minutes or less. And it's going to be a nuts episode because we've got not one, not two, not three, but 4 different pay-per-views. That's right. I'm still calling them pay-per-views, not premium live events or any crap like that. We're going to be covering all that and so much more Monday night on Pro Wrestling 60. And as always, if you like, come get some of our merch. You can head on over to sweetdollfacecreations.bigcartel.com where you can get all of your Cole TV as well as Learning the Ropes. And yes, even my dog Chubby has some shirts and hats over there too. So check it out over on sweetdollfacecreations.bigcartel.com. But oh boy, we have got a tremendous episode for you tonight, and we are pulling out the big guns, no pun intended, for this episode. So let's go ahead and bring our guest in. First and foremost, you know her from Pro Wrestling 60 and all her other social media avenues. She is our personal Bullet Club reporter, the one and only Sienna Chanel. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, my friend. I cannot wait to talk everything about Bullet Club, though.
Absolutely. And I said we're pulling out the big guns here. We've got joining us tonight a very special guest. He is by far the encyclopedia of New Japan Pro Wrestling on the Wrestle Talk, the TikToks, the social medias, all that jazz. Let's bring him in. The one and only, you know him, you love him. Wrestling Colin, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for inviting me back. Second time on the show. I got to say, you did an incredible job with the intro. Your partner did one of the best show intros I've ever heard the last time I was here. So you have very big shoes to fill. So that was a good one, man.
Well, thank you, good sir. I appreciate that, and we definitely appreciate that.
Oh, and I see. I was wondering what Bullet Club shirt you were rocking, and I just caught the go to sleep. So I'm co-signing that as a huge Kenta mark. I'm co-signing
I love
that.
Kenta. I love Kenta. Probably honestly, outside. I mean, I love Kenny, but I think Kenta. Let me put it this way: Kenta is my favorite current member of the Bullet Club. Let's put it that way. So. Love me some Bullet Club, but we are going to do such a deep dive here on the Bullet Club because it's crazy to think they've been around for 10 years. I mean, in this day and age in professional wrestling, that does not happen. I mean, unless of course it's
No.
over in Japan, because that's kind of what I want to talk about first here is just the significance of factions over in Japan versus here in North America. Because I mean, you have factions here that may last a couple years, if at best, but I mean, over there, it's a completely different scope, isn't it, Colin?
Yeah, I think in many cases it is, particularly with New Japan, in recent years. And when I mean recent years, I really mean the modern era of New Japan. They've had some very long running factions. I mean, yeah, Bullet Club is 10 years old, but LIJ at this point is getting kind of long in the tooth, right? And I mean, God, Chaos is like
Chaos.
dusty. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's such a New Japan thing too, because you go over and you look at, say, Pro Wrestling Noah, and sometimes it feels like their factions kind of flip every house show. You know, like, oh yeah, well, this faction no longer exists. We'll never talk about them again. Like sometimes, you know, other promotions feel like that, but particularly New Japan, I think understands very well the importance of, you know, yeah, I hate to use this cliche phrase, long-term storytelling, but it is true. And the importance of building brand cachet with fans, right? They understand that a faction is a storytelling vehicle. It's, if you want to get down to brass tacks, a t-shirt selling vehicle. And the more that you invest in it, the better you book it, the longer you can keep it running, a la Bullet Club, LIJ, you know, the more success you're going to have at the merchandise stand and with the greater mind share of pro wrestling fans around the world.
Yeah, I mean that you couldn't have said it any better, my friend. Sienna, what are your thoughts on like just the longevity of Bullet Club?
I mean, it's been like very mind blowing that Bullet Club have been running its course for the past 10 years. Like, I could not even think of any factions that run longer than Bullet Club, though. But I know that there were like much more of an influence throughout the years, especially like the inspiration behind Bullet Club. It's like the inspiration from NWO during their WCW days and how they kind of like split to it. But having it
Yeah.
like, more modernized, especially bringing in like the different members like throughout the years, it seems to
Yeah.
be like more of like how it's actually like spreading it all over too, especially not just in Japan, but also like in different companies alike too.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You're talking Bullet Club has spanned from pretty much every promotion, it seems like, with the exception of the WWE. And I mean, there's even some seeds in there if you want to count like the OC with AJ Styles and the Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. But
You know, Sienna, if I were a total pro res chauvinist, I would say yes, the Bullet Club is clearly a direct inspiration for the NWO, but allegedly the UWF or UWI invasion of New Japan, Nobuhiko Takada, back in the early to mid 90s, was the inspiration for the NWO.
NWO.
So maybe it really was New Japan that started it all. But I think that might be a
That's
stretch too.
right.
Well, that's a good point because we actually did mention
Mhm.
that last week on our episode covering the NWO, which is available now here on Cole TV for a replay. Cheap plug. But yeah, man, I totally agree with you. Like, if the seeds of this all started with that takeover angle, and I don't know, there's just something about it that's so intriguing about like just somebody coming in and just
Mhm.
turning things around, and just taking over and taking what is theirs essentially. And I mean, if you look back at the formation of the Bullet Club, I mean, it starts with Fergal Devitt or Prince Devitt, where I mean, at the time he'd been competing and dominating in the juniors divisions for years. And if memory serves me correct, I think what kind of sent him over the edge finally is when he turned on his tag team partner, Taguchi, and then pretty much was just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm over being like a light heavyweight. That's it. I want to be in the main event essentially. And of course, joining him, that first original foursome of the Bullet Club, we've got Carl Anderson, you got Tama Tonga, and of course, Bad Luck Fale. And I think what was fascinating about this, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Colin, was Bullet Club the first Gaijin stable in New Japan?
Wow, I've actually never thought of them in those terms.
Which I guess you may, because I mean, you do have some. I mean, it came later on with Japanese-based member, but I mean, you look at the Bullet Club for the most part has been foreigners.
Oh, there's absolutely no question. It took a couple years, I think, for Mr. Tokyo Pimps to become the first Japanese member of the Bullet Club.
Yep.
I'm going through my Rolodex right now, and I'm like, okay, well, obviously there's factions with Gaijin in them. Obviously, the NWO, you know, had the likes of Scott Norton and whomever, and I'm like, okay, but is it the first quote unquote Gaijin faction? And you might be right. I've just never thought of it in those terms.
Well, I think at the time when it happened, it was just like so ahead of its time. Because I mean, you have at the time, I mean, I know you had Chaos, but I mean, and maybe Suzuki-gun was around then. I can't remember.
You know, you could say it's ahead of its time. I actually don't think it was. You know what I think it was?
Sure.
I think it was the perfect execution of a formula that had been around for some time. You know, we just finished comparing them, obviously, to the NWO. That's the most obvious comparison in the world. We finished comparing the NWO to the UWFI invasion. You know, invasion angles had happened, even though the Bullet Club's not necessarily an invasion, but mutinies from within had happened. But the Bullet Club just did it so well. It's like everybody knows how to cook a pizza, but that was the best pizza you've ever tasted. You know, they just did it so well.
That's a pretty good analogy, and I do love me some pizza.
I guess I want pizza. I don't know why I use that.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
DoorDash, like right when we're getting to the finish of this.
Yeah, start on your. We see us on our. If you see us on our phones, you know what we're doing. Okay.
Yes. But man, you know what? You put it that way. You're right. I mean, it is a formula that's been copied before. Maybe you could say right place, right time.
Oh, no doubt.
For Bullet Club. And I think too, I mean, Prince Devitt at the time was just gaining a bunch of huge momentum. And I mean, this was really his coming out party, essentially, because everybody knew how good he was in ring. But I don't think you really saw like that character side of him, especially him working as a heel.
Being the leader of the Bullet Club, you know, even though he was the first leader, so this wasn't known back then, you get an enormous spotlight on you, and it really is an opportunity to level up your career. And I think you can say that's true with every single Bullet Club leader, even the ones like an AJ Styles who had really successful careers prior to that and whose, you know, level of skill was a known factor. I really think it'd be hard to argue he didn't level up and do his best work, or at least some of his best work as leader of the Bullet Club. So it really is, you are center stage. You have a limited amount of time to sing your best song, juggle your best swords, whatever your talent is, and impress the audience. And every subsequent Bullets Club member, leader has done that. And I guess you could say that Prince Devitt set that tone. He made it so that, hey, if you're the leader of this faction, it's not like other factions. You're not just kind of there. You're not just used in an angle this way or that way. You really have the spotlight on you specifically. And, you know, we have his tenure as leader was a year. I think it was May to April.
It was
1
so short.
year. The Bullet Club, that is, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are not particularly good at math, that is 10% of Bullet Club's lifespan. And he's so influential. And he did such a great job of setting that tone, like we said, that we're still talking about him as a member of Bullet Club, which he hasn't been for quite some time.
Yeah, it's almost mind-boggling when you think about it. And you look back in that 2013 when Bullet Club formed, you know, by the end of the year, you've got Doc Gallows joins them, and then of course you get the Young Bucks who join them. And I think that was hugely detrimental in the popularity of the Bullet Club, because let's face facts, at the time and still to this day, the Young Bucks is like one of the hottest tag teams going. Everybody loves the Bucks. Well, maybe not everybody nowadays, but you get what I'm saying.
I know a couple guys who don't, but I agree. And you know, it was around this time that I was starting to watch New Japan in a regular way, not a kind of like, oh, I'll watch this show, or, oh, Wrestle Kingdom, I've heard of that. And I have to say the Young Bucks were one of the shiny objects that attracted me first.
I mean, and I think Bullet Club too, as well, with all their members, I think people saw this and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is appealing. And it brought people into New Japan. And then you start watching it, and then you
That's
see
true.
Okada and Tanahashi and Naito and all these other amazing performers. You're like, oh my God, what is going on in New Japan? I
The
need to
Bull
watch this.
the Bullet Club is a Gaijin fan's gateway drug to New Japan, or at
Mhm.
least it was for a very long time. I don't think that's true anymore because New Japan's become so global.
Mhm.
But they were for a
Yeah.
long time. And again, just like you have to praise Prince Devitt for that. There's just something I don't really know why it worked so well. He's just such a strong, charismatic individual. Something about him kind of looking you via the camera dead in the eye and going like, it's real, you know, I'm a
Oh,
shooter.
Yeah.
It gives you goosebumps.
the facial expressions of him has always been incredible, I thought. And then when you add in that facade with the makeup and stuff, and it's just like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And I have to say, with that 2013, that first year, you look at their reign of dominance. You have Prince Devitt won the Super Juniors tournament that year. You have the Young Bucks win the Juniors Tag tournament that year. You have Gallows and Anderson win the World Tag League that year. I mean,
Yeah.
winning 3 of what, 5 of the major tournaments in New Japan. That's pretty impressive.
No doubt, man. No doubt. You know, they didn't cut the legs off of Bullet Club before they got a chance to run. They
Mhm.
gave them titles, they gave them prominent places in the booking. Um, it's funny to remember, and then that continued for years too. I mean, I think the AJ Styles era is probably arguably the most dominant era, and
Yeah.
it's funny to think of that now because now I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I know we'll get here, but now you look at the Bullet Club and it really does feel like the fangs have been removed, you know, from
Yeah.
the animal. Like the cobra's been defanged, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But back then
Yeah.
Oh, so edgy.
they felt, oh dude, they felt so dangerous. Like one thing, if you're a younger fan, or hey, if you're older than me but you know you haven't got into pro res, one thing about the Bullet Club back then that you can't really exaggerate is it did feel edgy. Like people were pissed off at these guys. They were coming in, they were cheating. Yes, cheating in wrestling is as old as wrestling, but they were doing it in this really in your face sort of like, you know, honorless, valueless, shitty way,
Oh yeah.
frankly. And they could like people, they had heat. They had
Mhm.
heat.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Like their heat was like almost nuclear when you think about it in the landscape of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I also think it's fascinating too because like, and once again I could be wrong here on the history, but I do believe Bullet Club was also one of the first factions in New Japan to start including members from completely different organizations. And the very first you go to Mexico and
Mm.
CMLL with
Yep.
them adding a couple of wrestlers in the fold there that was part of the Bullet Club. So it's like Bullet Club was just like going international. They were everywhere, man.
Well, it makes a lot of sense with what you brought up earlier, which is how Bullet Club was so instrumental in spreading New Japan globally. And I really don't think it's by accident that they decided to make it an ever increasingly ever global faction. You've already got foreign wrestlers who are leading the group, participating in the group. So why not get people who actually, you know, wrestle for a different promotion and again, kind of spread the virus, right?
Yeah.
Because all
Mhm.
roads lead back to New Japan. You said it earlier and you're 100% correct. It's like you come for Kenny Omega or AJ Styles or whoever it was, and then you discover Tanahashi or Ishii or, you know, Okada, whoever your pleasure is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And you know, so we get down to 2014 here, and as we mentioned, Prince Devitt does leave. But then like
Ooh.
I was just blown away by this, the importance of the fact that their next leader would be, in fact, AJ Styles. Sienna, I got to ask you, we kind of mentioned earlier, but how huge of a factor you think it was that AJ Styles not only joined the Bullet Club, but was the new leader of Bullet Club?
It actually set like a bigger tone to it, especially the fact that him being a leader and especially having like a dominant run leading Bullet Club has been like one of the most pivotal point, especially like him focusing on is winning that IWGP world champion at the time. That actually set the really bar high. Not only that, like during his like leadership, brought in more people in. Like you have Yujiro Takahashi, the first Japanese member of Bullet Club, then Cody Hall, and I
Oh yeah.
believe the Young Bucks, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
Kenny Omega, and amongst other names too. And it definitely brings like, elevating more towards like, okay, now Bullet Club is getting like more of the name recognition, especially having AJ because he wrestles like before, like with TNA Impact Wrestling and other promotions as well too. And that actually brings more exposure for it. And not only that, having the Young Bucks being the member of Bullet Club is actually setting the bar high because they actually started doing being the elite, even though it's like starting out with like logs of like shows they go to, but then going behind and seeing about Bullet Club that's actually starting to set the tone a little bit higher to where it is,
One
like
one
social
thing
media
that
wise.
got me thinking, Sienna, when you were talking, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. But you brought up like AJ kind of I forget the word you just used, not brought legitimacy, but like set a bigger tone. And it got me thinking that every single leader of the Bullet Club is an incredible in-ring performer. I think that's one big difference between this
Mm-hmm.
faction and many others. That's not always the case, right? For
Yeah.
various reasons. But every single Bullet Club leader tears it up from bell to bell. And
Mm-hmm.
it's this awesome juxtaposition of like they are heels, they are blatant cheaters, they seem like awful people, they do awful things to other people, they ruin a good time, but oh man, like AJ could probably win by himself. Like he's that damn good. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
No, you're
Yeah,
absolutely
definitely.
right. But
Yeah, and
I,
especially like having like more people in, but then having like doing on their own too, and AJ like guiding it through. It definitely sets like more of like, I would say, into kind of like a little bit more like a bigger threat to be like more of the dominating faction there is. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great word, threat, because at that time they truly were threatening. Like it felt like you couldn't beat them as a faction. Maybe in an individual match you could get a W, but
Mhm.
in a long-term war, whatever you want to call it, series of
Mhm.
matches, you couldn't beat them because they were by and large all incredible wrestlers. And if they couldn't beat you wrestling, which was unlikely, they would just all walk out and stomp you and pour beer over you and put fake guns to your head.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like they didn't have to do that; they chose to do it essentially.
Yes.
But I think what blew me away about AJ Styles is how serious of a competitor he was taking. I mean, his very first match out of the gate, he wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I mean, defeating Okada, and we know the greatness of
Mhm.
Okada. I mean, my gosh. And I love that storyline too, where AJ was referring to him as a young boy in the TNA Impact days as well. So, but I think like when AJ won the IWGP Championship, it was already like Bullet Club was kind of the hip, cool thing. But man, oh man, when that happened, it's like, okay, Bullet Club's legit.
Sometimes wrestling fans, they either correctly or incorrectly attribute lack of success to booking and storylines and things like that, in terms of factions. Like, oh well, if he only won that belt, if he only won that tournament, as if that's all there is to making a connection with an audience. But with Bullet Club, you can really never accuse New Japan during that time of failing to put fuel in their tank. Like AJ winning IWGP Heavyweight, there's nothing else. There's no higher honor. There's no higher belt. And he didn't win it in a really conniving, undeserving way. He defended it.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And we saw, a similar pattern repeat itself with Omega winning the G1, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and it was a whoa. They actually put that on him. They let him do that. It's just this mark of legitimacy. And it just shows you again how much New Japan clearly believed in this vehicle that is the Bullet Club. Whether it was just for global domination or it was both domestic or whatever, but I mean, they clearly understood the value of what they were doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think also add into that, you look at the Bullet Club's first real like tour in North America and the work they did in Ring of Honor. And I think that's what really started to bring the fans in from over here to Japan, because it was just like, oh, I've heard about this, but I haven't really seen it yet. And then when you see what they're doing in Ring of Honor, it's like, okay, like this, there is something really special going on here right now. And I mean, they were dominant in Ring of Honor too.
Yep.
You look at the Young Bucks holding both the ROH tag titles the same time they held the IWGP Junior Tag Team Championship. Also at this point too, you got Bad Luck Fale defeating Shinsuke Nakamura for the Intercontinental Championship. So I mean, Bullet Club is just riding high all the way through. Now, eventually AJ Styles would drop the IWGP Heavyweight Championship to Hiroshi Tanahashi. But still, though, I mean, their dominance was still like nonetheless of everything that they were doing. And then you go into like Wrestle Kingdom. I believe it was Wrestle Kingdom 9, which, Colin, I know we've talked about this at great length of how phenomenal of a show that was. Then you have I believe it's I think Wrestle Kingdom 9 is the one where Kenny Omega wins the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, isn't it? I want to say.
It's embarrassing, but I have to go back,
Yeah.
and that's double
Yeah.
embarrassing for me because Wrestle Kingdom 9 was one of my, I don't know if it wasn't the first Wrestle Kingdom I watched, but it was the first one that I sat down,
Oh, yeah.
I knew about ahead of time, and I watched live. I didn't watch in like clips on Vimeo or something. I sat down and I watched it. So I probably should have a better memory of it. But it's funny. One of the things I remember the most, I said this earlier, is the Young Bucks being a shiny object. I remember the Bucks match that was really early on in the card and kind of just melting down on the couch, like watching that and just melting down and understanding that I really actually didn't know what junior heavyweight wrestling was. I really didn't have a very good idea because I just saw some shit that I've never seen before.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, good God, they had some great dance partners too. You look at the Time Splitters, you look at Red Dragon, just all those matches they had. Oh my God,
I think
Roppongi Vice.
Yeah, I think the Time Splitters, I think, had a really cool entrance that year too, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, the Back to the Future entrance, right? Yeah.
Well, they did the Back to the Future shtick several times, but was that the DeLorean or not? Or was that
it was the DeLorean? And then
or was that Wrestle Kingdom 8?
I thought it was not. It could be. But you know what? We always say here on our show, when in doubt, Wikipedia that. That's right, because everybody gets one. Just say it.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, the Bullet Club at this point, they're going on all cylinders. It's awesome to see like all the different members. And I mean, they just keep adding members. Sienna, you mentioned this earlier. Like their first real kind of understudy was the son of the late great Scott Hall, Cody Hall. And I mean, how amazing was that to have? And Cody Hall, man, it's unfortunate. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit or had nearly long enough a career, unfortunately. But man, he was a stud looking at him. And in the ring, I didn't think he was that bad. He was just getting better and better. It's just his career ended short, unfortunately.
Yeah, in a very unforeseeable fashion to it. But like him being the additional member of Bullet Club did help a long way. I wish that they would have like have him stay a little bit longer, especially like for me, hopefully that he would have been like able to go to like a different title reign too, though, to bring like more of like into his notoriety while being a member of Bullet Club, though.
Yeah. And I feel like at this
Mm.
time frame too, you got AJ's like kind of a main
Mhm.
event player in the title scene, the IWGP champion scene. You've got Kenny's got the junior lockdown. The Young Bucks, of course, got the junior tags locked down. And you have the you have Gallows and Anderson has pretty much got the world tag team titles locked down. So I mean, it just goes to show you their dominance, like especially in these first couple years. I mean, I think that's a huge part of Bullet Club's legacy.
Yep.
But as we go from the era of AJ Styles and then other members being added in, especially from Ring of Honor, we get guys like Hangman Page.
Mm.
You get guys added to him like Adam Cole, guys like Marty Scurll, and so much more. It's just like their expansion is just nuts. But I also think it's kind of like if you look at Bullet Club and the way they set this up, it's almost like in real life with a business, when you expand so rapidly like this, there's going to be cracks in the fold. And I think in this point, you start to kind of see that a little bit. Not too significantly at first, but definitely on down the road for sure. But as we go on here, and you look at AJ Styles' run, he does win another IWGP Heavyweight Championship. However, when we get down to 2016, we get to pretty much the Kenny Omega era. And I think, arguably, this is probably the most popular era of Bullet Club. What would you say?
Oh man, Sienna, you gotta go first because I gotta
Yeah.
think about that one. Because the man didn't
Yeah.
say best; he said popular, which is an
Yeah.
objective term. So now I have to think.
Yes. And that's where they starting to make more exposure of Bullet Club, like being more notable in the wrestling industry, like outside, like within New Japan, but like everywhere in the wrestling industry as well. When you think about like Kenny Omega being the leader of Bullet Club, like you have Adam Cole, baby, Young Bucks, Hangman and Page, Marty Scurll, and of course, amongst others, especially one of them that actually brought in to be the member of Bullet Club, Cody Rhodes.
Oh,
And that is
yes.
like one of the names that actually like people were like drawing eyes on too. And as I mentioned it earlier, the Young Bucks started their Being the Elite series on that same year, and that's where they brought in more of like some of the members of Bullet Club besides like the whole like skits and all of that, but like the more of the behind the scene of what's going on too. And that's where it started to become more popularized. That also the Bullet Club t-shirt designs too from like different members. That's actually the ones that actually brought in like more of like the high merchandise, especially from trying to think of that t-shirt company. I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
Pro Wrestling Tees.
Pro Wrestling Tees, yes.
Yeah.
And that's how it started being more pivotal to it too. And when people think Bullet Club, people think Kenny, the Bucks, Cody, Hangman and Page. Of course, Gorillas of Destiny also, because that's also like when Kenny was still a leader, that's where Tonga Loa comes in to join Bullet Club with Tama Tonga. And I think that like the thing of it is like while Bullet Club's being alrighty because the big name like Cody, and that's where he left WWE, starting to do like more shows like Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, New Japan. That actually like sets like more of like the popularized of this faction as well, and also notoriety of Kenny Omega, especially his incredible, like his good run, especially with the IWGP Intercontinental title and other title reign too, especially that one notable match, his match against Okada. That is like the most talked about match.
You make a compelling argument for the most popular, and you're probably objectively correct. But there's part of my gut that wants to answer AJ Styles era. And probably what that is that I think that was the most effective era of Bullet Club, the best era, just from a fan perspective. And you said, when you think of Bullet Club, you think of Kenny Omega and Adam Page and these guys. And for me, I actually don't. But again, it's all subjective. It's all where you came in as a fan. And it's so funny because a lot of the guys from that era of Bullet Club, I do not associate with Bullet Club at all. Like I'm always thinking about that AJ Styles era where it wasn't just the core, there was some expansion, right? But it wasn't 58 guys from, 7 different promotions. But to your point, I think a lot of people got on the train when it stopped at Kenny Omega. And I think a lot of people feel the way you feel.
Yeah,
exactly.
Both are phenomenal errors. I mean, you can't like comparing them is almost like peanut butter and jelly essentially. You can't have one without the other. And it's almost like, okay, the AJ Styles era crawled, so the Kenny Omega era can run essentially if you think about it.
You know what? This is extremely nerdy of me, but before we went on, I was thinking of an analogy about that. And I really apologize for this tangent. In Japanese history, there was an era where they went from a period of total civil war, total strife in the 1500s to the year 1600, where they had a period of complete and utter stability, static stability for hundreds of years, the Tokugawa shogunate. Okay. Google it, Wikipedia, whatever. And there's a saying where it's like who created the shogunate, like who united Japan. And there's 3 guys. And I won't say the guys' names because I'll butcher them, but it was basically they compared Japan to a rice cake. And they say guy number 1 made the rice cake. Guy number 2 baked the rice cake. Guy number 3 ate the rice cake. And I feel like that is Bullet Club. And I guess that means that Switchblade reheated the rice cake or something.
Yeah, and poor David Finley. God, what's he got left? But anyways, we'll talk about that.
Found some crumbs on the floor.
Oh, Lord have mercy. But yeah, we'll talk about that definitely in more detail here in a couple minutes.
Yes.
But this Kenny Omega era and like just the dominance they had, like, and the appeal they had overseas here in North America, here in Ring of Honor and stuff. And like you guys say, adding these different intricate pieces to it, and him just putting on amazing matchup after matchup after matchup, having incredible runs with the Intercontinental title, and then becoming the very first United States champion. I mean, that was huge. I mean, he put that title literally on the map. In my opinion, I think Kenny put that title on the map the same way that Shinsuke Nakamura put the IC title on the map. And I
that's
mean,
a bold claim.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a bold claim because I also think, while I don't disagree within the context of that time period, I also think the United States Championship did experience a bit of a dip later on. Now, I think it's back.
Oh,
I think the stocks are up again, obviously, since there's no Intercontinental belt, and there hasn't been for a little while now. It sort of taken that place maybe. But I mean, it definitely made it feel like a real title. It's real, as Prince Devitt would say.
Yeah. And I feel like Kenny, like I think everybody at this point knew, like, okay, Kenny is like scratching the surface essentially. And I know I'm probably fast forwarding here a little quick, but I mean, when you get to him getting that triumphant moment and winning the G1, which I mean, at the time as a New Japan fan, I did not think he would win that tournament. I mean, I really didn't. I thought that was for sure would have been Naito winning that year. But man, oh man, I was so pleasantly surprised when Kenny Omega won the G1 Climax. And once again, I got to go back to that Gaijin reference. He's the first Gaijin to ever win the G1, which that's a massive feat. Another, a feather in the cap of the Bullet Club. Now they have a member who's won the G1 Climax.
Yeah, at that point, Bullet Club is kind of running out of boxes to check, which is a problem, but it's the best problem you could ever have, I guess.
Yep.
No, that's very true. But as so we get to this showdown at Wrestle Kingdom 11, I believe it was, where he challenges Okada for the IWGP Championship, and this is the first time, at least first time I'm aware of them meeting one-on-one or in a big match scenario like this. Holy crap, that main event, breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. I mean, that is still one of my favorite matches I can go back and watch over and over again. For a while, it was the longest Tokyo Dome main event as far as like time-wise.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that match, in both of your opinions, like how detrimental was that matchup to the ascension of Kenny Omega?
You mean like complimentary?
Yeah.
How essential was it? I mean, I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but yeah, I mean, you already said it. It was essential. Essential means can't do without. That's what that word means, right? And I think you can categorize that particular Tokyo Dome match as essential to, like you said, Kenny Omega's rise. Kenny Omega had been proving himself for a long time at that point. And it's like I said earlier, and it's like AJ and it's like Devitt. It's not, these guys had paid so many dues. They put on so many incredible matches, but this is arguably where it counted the most. This is where the brightest spotlight on the biggest stage so far was available to them. So it's an elevation point. It's an elevation point, and he took it and he did. Wow, I don't want to give it all to Kenny Omega. I was going to say he did Kenny Omega things. They took it and they did Omega and Okada things. In hindsight, it would be hard to put those two names next to each other on a card and not have a banger, a classic, whatever terminology you want to use.
Yeah, and I just feel like that first matchup, and then like, you know, those incredible sets of matches we got over time with Okada is just like one of the greatest runs and series of matchups, not only in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but in all of professional wrestling history, in my opinion. I mean, my gosh, just phenomenal. Just the building of the story, like the G1 matchup they had. Oh my gosh, and then going into Dominion where they go that I think it was Dominion where they went the 1 hour draw.
I mean, this is like things like this program, the Omega Okada program and others like it, are kind of what we might define as time goes on and we look back with rose-colored glasses as maybe the apex of New Japan's renaissance, New Japan's global renaissance, right? Because obviously in the Devitt era, they are still emerging from a darker period. They're a little removed from it, granted, but they're still emerging. And actually, Pro Res period is going through kind of a tough time. Nobody's doing so good, Noah included. And you know, AJ, like we said, he breathes so much life into it. He elevates it. These incredible matches, so much global attention, so many global eyes. And Omega just takes us to the next level. And everything else that's happening in the company at that point too, the world is really starting to pay attention. The world is really starting to watch. And I feel like we might look back on this and say, okay, this period of a couple years, this was the peak of the mountain for the resurgence of New Japan, or the renaissance, or whatever term you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just
and Omega and Okada are part of that, was my whole point for mentioning that.
Yeah, no. I totally got what you meant. And I feel like just that feud just setting Omega like head and shoulders just in a different plateau. I felt like
was the Wrestle Kingdom 11 entrance was the Terminator one, right?
I believe so. Yes,
I'm pretty sure. I think. Geez, I hope I'm not wrong on that. I love that entrance, and I'll always remember it. I don't care that it was a dollar store plastic face mask. It was. Dude, the intro video, I know I'm going on a tangent now. The intro video where they do like in Terminator where he's, you know, nude like in a ball or whatever, and they're scanning people. So cool. Love that.
Now I want to watch Terminator after this, damn it.
You're going to order pizza and watch Terminator.
Watch Terminator.
Okay.
That sounds like a pretty awesome night to me, man. But you're right, that entrance. And you talk about the mask too. The thing is, like, I'll never forget, like, the mask people kind of may have harped on, but to me, it was the facial expression of Kenny Omega, that crazed look in his eyes, the gritting teeth. It's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be awesome.
He was so badass back then. And I'm not saying he's not badass now, but like the cleaner, and he had this like long leather jacket, like he was a villain in an anime, and the mirrored aviator sunglasses, and then the Terminator thing. And I know he still does this, but back then, you know, the dun 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 on the mat.
Yeah.
He was so cartoonishly badass. Whereas Prince Devitt was really edgy and like kind of scary, like in a real way. Like if he was mad at me, like I'd be very scared. And AJ Styles was so dominant and so strong in the ring, right? And just an incredible competitor. And then Omega is like, he's like out of an anime, you know, the way he acts is so exaggerated. It's so fun. And I think that is part of the tilt that Bullet Club makes to going from edgy, pretty serious heat with at least the fans in the building, and just like super cool, like badass, we're a gang, to it's pro wrestling in the modern era. There's no real heels and no real bad guys. We're cool. We're all cool. Everyone's cool. Everyone's just so cool, right? And I know it sounds like I'm being a little negative on that, and maybe I am in the greater context of pro wrestling. But I think you see Bullet Club drift into that era from, you know, from it's real to, Well, it's fun.
Sad.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like the cool kids in school. They were the kids that sat in the back of the bus and like they were annoying, but like you still kind of wanted to be a part of the pack.
Well, what they were, I think, is they
Mhm.
started off as the kid from the rough part of town who came to school. You think you saw a knife in his backpack and you were like, I do not want to mess
Nope.
with this kid.
Nope.
And then, you know, that kid, I don't know, his parents got a new job and he started wearing flashy clothes and he became
Yep.
popular. I feel like that's the kid, right? And now the kid is, well, I don't know, maybe held back a grade, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way of putting it. That poor
Yeah.
David Finley.
Oh God, poor David
Oh,
Finley.
boy.
He did nothing wrong. And he's done nothing bad.
Yeah.
He's done only great things. He's done only great things.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to
Mhm.
talk about him here in a little bit. But one thing I want to talk about at this time frame too is like not so much. I don't think the Bullet Club's getting stale per se in North America. I think it's red hot. But I think
Yeah.
it's starting to die down just slightly in New Japan. And the reason I feel like for that is you have the emergence of Los Ingobernables de Japón. And they're
Yep.
kind of like the new, like, okay, these guys are freaking awesome, especially Tetsu Naito.
So when you talk about New Japan factions, there is a real pattern that emerges in the modern era of there's a heel, villain, badass ball, and only one team can have the ball at one time.
Yeah.
And not everybody can be a badass, rule breaking dude from the wrong side of the tracks. We can't all be killers, guys. So the Bullet Club, like I was just alluding to, was scary, edgy, intimidating.
Yeah.
Under Omega, that was still true, but they're starting to transition. LIJ comes. Look, if you just started watching New Japan today, you'd assume LIJ was a total babyface faction, absolutely lovable guys. They're just so nice and they're so fun. Not the case originally, not the case, right?
No.
And Suzuki-gun, very similar story. I know they're no longer around, but Suzuki-gun at the end was such a wink, wink, like, oh, he almost killed him. Like, oh, Minoru Suzuki's killing a man. Oh, this is so fun. You know, they became that. But prior to that, they were hated. They were hated. They
Yeah.
ruined matches. They, you know, in kayfabe, they sandbagged matches. They made for really bad pro wrestling matches. Really kind of unpopular with what they did in Noah. And this is kind of the natural way of things and the natural evolution. And that ball, that badass ball, I think it started going to another team. I don't think it fully did. I don't
Yeah.
think it fully did. But to your point, there's only so much badassery to go around. Chaos had lost it. You know, Chaos
Yeah.
used to be this scary badass faction as well, which again, if you just started watching New Japan today, you would never guess. But it's a natural evolution. And maybe 10 years from now, Bullet Club will be like the the saviors of New Japan, the ultimate face faction. Who knows?
That would be crazy, but I mean, you never know. I mean, anything can happen in the world of professional wrestling. Now, I feel like a very pivotal moment in Kenny Omega's career and for New Japan Pro Wrestling in general. We get to Wrestle Kingdom 12 and the fact that they are able to lure in Chris Jericho with a match with Kenny Omega. And it's just like that okay, you already were aware of it if you're a Ring of Honor fan, but now you're appealing to like the masses, like the WWE fans who love Chris Jericho. And they're like, what? Chris Jericho's wrestling in New Japan against this Kenny Omega guy I've heard of? I got to check this out. And I mean, that was such a monumental moment in the history of New Japan.
That was such a big deal. I have so many positive things to say about Jericho's program in New Japan over those couple years. Every match he had was stellar. He was never overused, never overbooked. The Painmaker, very divisive. I love the Painmaker. Almost wore my Painmaker shirt for this podcast. But I love that gimmick. I know it's very silly. I enjoy it. I just can't say enough good things. It was a huge deal. He brought so much attention and so many eyeballs, like you alluded to New Japan. And God, he brought the heat.
Oh my God.
Holy, not that Jericho, does this, but good Lord, he did not phone it in like at any point.
I mean, even the press conference and stuff, it was just like, oh my God. Like Chris Jericho was like, it was like all this built up frustration and rage of like being confined in the WWE. And I'll never forget, like, Jericho's mentioned this in interviews before where he's talking to Kenny about the matchup. And it's like, who do we go to talk about? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, we can do whatever. And it's like, what? Like, what is this?
The vignettes that he shot, especially in the Painmaker gimmick, when he really kind of found what he was doing in New Japan, you can tell he's having so much fun. Like he's just having a blast. Nobody's forcing this on him. Nothing corny, nothing cheesy, nobody yelling in his ear. He's just having a blast.
Yeah. I mean, the Jericho one, like you say, Colin, was just phenomenal. But I love that they have that matchup at Wrestle Kingdom. And I love, I got to go back a little bit to the whole Naito, because remember, Naito had won the G1 that year. And it was like, it was plain as day. Naito was going to be in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. But there was doubt. Like, this is such a massive matchup. What if, like, that moment, and we could talk all day about Naito. You know how I feel about Naito and love Naito. Like, his story arc is just second to none, in my opinion. But just like that build up to like what's going to happen here. And both of those matches at that Wrestle Kingdom that year were phenomenal.
Oh, and to tie it back to Jericho, personally, I think the Naito match is the best one. Now, if you could say any one to me and I go, yeah, great, fine, no problem. But I personally think the Naito one, I don't know if I will ever forget the ramp bump they did like super early on in that particular match. I'm going on a crazy tangent here, but
no, it's okay.
I remember.
And they did another like pile driver much later in the match on a table, and it did that thing. The table gods bless them. It did that thing where it didn't break in half, a hole the size of his head.
Yeah,
he went through the table, and so you got these great shots of the table has like a Naito-sized head, or Naito-sized hole, excuse me, in it.
Yeah. You're right. That feud, as great as the stuff was with Jericho and Omega, oh my God, I honestly, I'm with you. I think the Naito feud was my favorite of Jericho's in New Japan during this time frame.
Naito's just such a crazy guy that, like, if he gets in the ring, and we saw this his program with Ibushi a few years back, things got real scary. When he gets in the ring with somebody else who will push limits, go 11 out of 10, dial it to 11, they feed off each other, and you just get like, and I mean this in a good way, like cringe-worthy bumps and incredible storytelling and fantastic wrestling, and like just cannot miss wrestling when you put him with someone like Jericho or Ibushi or whoever.
Yeah, and I think that night after New Year's Dash, the night after that Wrestle Kingdom that year, to me was one of the most important ones as far as like storytelling. Because yes, we do get the whole Naito Jericho thing. But another thing I want to talk about here, you talk about planting some seeds. What about when you think Jay White is going to be the newest member of the Bullet Club, and he turns on Kenny Omega? And if you think back in the history of New Japan, during his during his junior championship run, they did have an encounter, or maybe it wasn't the juniors. I know they had an encounter at some point when Jay White was a young boy, essentially, and just talk about that, how that come full circle, man.
Yeah, this general era is interesting, and I know this is a little bit before this, and we had already kind of talked about this, but I found this era overbooked and confusing. And I know that a lot of people have very fond memories of this time period. And actually, I'm one of them. I do too. Believe me, I love me some American Nightmare. But there was I found it very confusing as a fan, or just maybe confusing is the wrong word. Not coherent, incoherent. Like, it's like, okay, well, this is Bullet Club, but these guys are the elite. But he's the American Nightmare, and he's going to be the leader. Well, actually, no, he's not. Oh, well, they got Jay White to come up here. Oh my God, is Jay White the leader? And it's at that point that I think for me, I begin to think like, okay, are we at that NWO era where
Yes,
like I can't,
absolutely. The
you know,
Wolfpack and Team Hollywood. That is like, so now you got the splinter cells of these groups.
yeah,
And I agree that I think that's a perfect analogy, Colin, where it was just, I mean, some of it was cool to watch, but also the road to get there was just like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on now with Bullet Club?
exactly. Like it wasn't terrible. Like, don't get me wrong, but like you said, sometimes you're just like, holy shit, can
Yeah.
we, like, someone else is running out from the back and like shaking hands and then giving them their finisher. Like, let's
Yeah.
do this once, you know?
Right. Well, and you think about it too. I think one aspect of this as well is the fact that you have the OGs who aren't really like siding with either Kenny or Cody. They're just kind of looking back like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, we're the ones who come up with Bullet Club. Like, it's just like getting out of hand.
You throw, and I didn't even mention this. You throw Tomatonga in there too, and he had his whole like, nah, like you said, like, I'm an OG, I'm a founding member, and bring my brother in, and
Yeah.
you know, it was just, there was a lot going on. Although you can't say a bad word about God to me personally.
No.
I'm
I
biggest
love
God
Gorillas of
fan.
Destiny. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Both those guys kill it.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But yeah, so you have this civil war essentially in the Bullet Club. And I mean, it all really starts with, Kenny dropping that US title to Jay White, which a lot of people were shocked to see, including myself. And then you have that moment where Hangman comes out, like he's going to apparently be the next challenger. Kenny's like, no, no, no. And then, of course, the whole stuff with Cody. And Cody had already been feuding with Kota Ibushi, which that is one aspect of this that I did love, though, was the whole like tease with the Golden Lovers and what that story kind of,
Dude, that's cool, man, because that's psychological.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
people are so lazy when it comes to storytelling. And I'm a storyteller by trade. I work in the digital media business, and I
Okay.
create, documentaries and things like that. So believe me when I say pro wrestling is no exception. People get so lazy. Like, but that is an example of how to let something burn and build on it. Like, that's cool, man. Like, oh, I want to overthrow this guy. I don't really have the power base yet. I'm going to pick him apart by effing with his best friend, who I know
Yeah.
he's conflicted about. Like, dude, that is cool, man. That's psychological. What is not psychological is 10 different guys running out from the back. Oh, whose side am I on? Oh, I'm on your side. Guess what? Wink, wink. No, I'm not,
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little bit overkill at that point. There's certain aspects of it.
certain aspects. Yeah.
But you get to this moment too where all this is going on with the Bullet Club, and then okay, let's revisit the Okada feud, and like then Kenny has that defining moment at Dominion and wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship for the first time. And I kind of got the vibe too from that of like, you look back in the day to like WrestleMania 10, Bret Hart, Owen Hart. Owen Hart, like, beats Brett, but Big Brother goes and wins the world title. And it's like Cody's kind of like, I'm leader, whatever. And then like Kenny wins the world title. And it's just like, at this point, he's got to be festering because that's what he wants. That's what he covets. Just like anybody else is that IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
And maybe I'm being too hard on the whole situation too, because given time, which they obviously didn't have because a lot of the names we're talking about went somewhere else shortly, but given time, perhaps this would have unfolded into some Game of Thrones-esque,
Houses.
some House of Cards type of thing over the next few years. It's entirely possible.
House of Omega. House of Jay White. Yeah, that
yes, the House of Jay White.
Yeah.
Bend the knee to the House of Cody.
There you go. But I got to go back to where you're talking about like just wonky booking. So then you have this kind of this turmoil with Cody and like Kenny, and they kind of resolve their differences at the New Japan show in at the Cow Palace.
Which
where
I
they
was
have that-
there live.
I was gonna say, were you there for that, Sienna?
Yes, that was my actual first ever New Japan show I actually attended live. And it was like also like it was kind of like the day / on the day of my birthday too.
Oh.
So I've seen it all, especially like right after the main event match, which is Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes for that. And from there on, we're like trying to make amends, and then you have like a surprise attack from God and the other members of Bullet Club that were like sidelined during this whole like riff with Kenny and Cody and the Young Bucks, Hangman Page and Marty Scurll together. And so it started to cause like a divide, like Bullet Club Elite and the Bullet Club Firing Squad.
Yes.
Which, in my opinion, is it's like the beginning of the end, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, oh my God. Like, man, you remember that pizza we baked? Do you remember the one that Prince Devitt made? So we got this pizza, right? It's friggin' perfect. It's our best seller. Phone's ringing off the hook. We do one thing really well. Let's just do it. You know what? Why don't we add some pineapple to it? Because we're bored. Why don't we add some anchovies to it? Oh shit. Like half the people don't like it anymore. And they don't know why we did it. You know, it's like, I just, and dissenting opinions are completely valid, but the Elite, the Firing Squad, like what the fuck? Like, no, I'm good. Like Bullet Club. Like,
it wasn't even make no sense whatsoever. Even in the back of my mind, I was like, so now what? And especially the fact that like the Elite was like getting ready to be out of New Japan, since of course we all know the birth of AEW. Like what?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like when you look back on it. And I also, one aspect of it is like now all of a sudden, okay, Cody's back with the Elite. It's just like, what the fuck? Like you were just like okay, so you didn't win the belt, but now it's like your options have run out because the Firing Squad doesn't want you. So it's like, okay, fuck it. I guess I'll just go with you guys. It's like he's the last kid picked on the kickball like day at school or something, man.
It's like sometimes during this era, it's like the real Sting wearing the fake Sting mask and taking it off to reveal the real Sting, but it's actually the fake Sting. Like it's like it's sometimes you're just like,
or
like bro,
or like Kevin Nash dressed as Sting. It's like, what the fuck? It's 7 foot. That's Kevin Nash. Come on, man. Come on.
That man is giant. Okay.
Oh Lord. But I do think though, with this though, like Sienna was saying, from this though, you do get All Elite Wrestling, which is just crazy to think. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not all the Elite. You know, there's other aspects of it too that formed AEW, but they're a big part of it. I mean, shoot, they were the first like vice presidents, essentially. You know, they were like the first ones. Tony Khan's like, okay, I got to have you and Chris Jericho essentially to start up this promotion. Who I don't think. I mean, I think all of us had wishful thinking of what AEW would become, but I don't think any of us thought it would turn into this what it is now in that fast of a time frame. You know, which says something unto itself.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. There's a direct correlation there, and that's a positive thing. Having AEW around is just, I mean, I don't know who would disagree, but it's just a net positive for wrestling. Even if you're not like a huge fan of their product, probably all the people watching this are, and probably all the people in this room are. But you're right. So I mean, there's a huge positive there. I am just such an insular pro res fan, partly due to like time constraints and real life things, you know, where you have to pick what you want to watch. But I am like New Japan, and then I'll watch Noah, and then after that I'll watch AEW, but like maybe I'll watch Dragon Gate just for like some weird, just for something different, or maybe I'll watch this DDT show because I'm gonna, give that a chance or whatever. And so for me, I'm always focused on what is the outcome for the promotion that is kind of like my home promotion, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like rolling my eyes at that point, but you're right. I mean, it gave us AEW. So
yeah. And I think also too, with this, you kind of start to get Bullet Club going back in like the right direction once the Elite splinters off. And let's talk about it, where Jay White is now brought in as the new leader. Let me ask you guys this. Were you surprised that Jay White was the next one chosen to be the leader of the Bullet Club? And I mean, I know this is hard to ask because if you think about it at the time frame, I think it was kind of, that's interesting. But now it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's so hard to go back and like, oh, I thought this at the time. I mean, Sienna, you were described to me as kind of the Bullet Club historian, so you might have a less biased view on this than I do.
I mean, with Jay White, when he was part of Chaos, I know he has this different like demeanor and different approach as he was going to. And like in the back of my mind, like watching his match defending the IWGP US champion against Juice Robinson at the Cow Palace, like it was kind of like boggle my mind. It's like he has this heelish attitude, but why he's in a very babyface faction Chaos though, and I know for a fact that like okay, he dropped the title. He's probably gonna be like betraying Chaos to go to a different faction, and of course, Bullet Club would be the only options for him too. Let alone the fact that he was a young lion when he made his New Japan debut years ago, and then the way he elevated to where he became the leader of Bullet Club, it actually sets the tone high for it to extend. And honestly, I thought it's gonna be like going back to where it was like when like a combo of Prince Devitt and AJ Styles were the leaders of Bullet Club into kind of like more like a little bit of like a restoring way too, but then again, 2020
See,
happened.
that's a well-reasoned, good answer. That's why I wanted you to go first, because I don't know, because you're right. You're 100% right. Looking back on it, at the time, Jay White was an odd fit for Chaos. A very odd fit. Like, okay, he comes back and it's like, what is this guy? A serial killer? He's so weird. He's the vignettes. He's like in a room with like scratches everywhere. And he's like got this switchblade that he's like putting near his eye and stuff. And it's just like, what? This guy is weird and like a serial killer fetish guy. And like you said, like Chaos past the point of being a heel faction. So that should have clued us off a little bit. I don't know if it did to me at the time. I really, it's hard for me to recall. Jay White has done such a phenomenal job of stepping into that role. It is so hard for me to think of him outside of it. So hard.
I will say this too. I think Jay White, out of all the leaders, had the most difficult task handed to him. Because I mean, he was the leader. Sienna, you hinted at the pandemic.
Yeah.
Where it's just like everything shuts down and it's just like, oh my God, like, you know, what the heck are we doing from here now? And then especially with travel and he's not living in Japan. I mean, New Japan and of course the wrestling world, everybody did what they could back in 2020, but it was definitely a different landscape for all promotions. But to me, what I thought was the most confusing about this is I got to talk about it.
I know what you're going to say, and I've been waiting.
Evil. I don't like, I just was like, evil. I was just like, dude. I mean, I liked Evil until that.
Can I say something? This is going to be unpopular. Please. This is going to be unpopular. I promise. Usually, like, I feel like like my opinion on New Japan is like the popular one. This is going to be unpopular. I was hyped when Evil became the double champ. And when he was at his Evil rocks. If you just started watching New Japan recently, I am so sorry because Evil is fucking awesome. I don't know if I can swear on this show. He is awesome, dude. He, you know, in LIJ was the third or fourth stringer, depending on how you want to look at it, blah, 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 tag team, blah, blah, blah. And coming out with this new look, I thought was great. I think he's an amazing psychologist. He's a very good wrestler. The double champ, I was like, yo, this is awesome. Evil is badass. They gave him the sickest new theme song. I love his weird evil gladiator outfit, you know, and it just dropped off the biggest cliff imaginable with the House of Torture.
Oh, see, that's what did it for me. House of Torture. I was like, oh.
Yeah, a mood killer.
I can't believe they did that. Like, I'm so mad. Like, I was on Team Evil. Like, I was on board. I was so on the train. I bought my ticket. And then they were like, oh, actually, he's the leader of this extremely shitty, like, bargain bin version of Bullet Club, where, like, they do the most cartoonish shit, like, every match, you know?
It's like,
Yeah.
dude, the best way to describe House of Torture is it's like you have that one relative who gets your birthday present at the dollar store and thinks they're getting you like an Avengers toy, but it's like some like scam from overseas, like the Avengers or something like that. You know, just something ridiculous. That's what House of Torture is.
That is what House of
Yes,
Torture is.
exactly.
It's like
And I'm gonna.
so go ahead,
Go
Sue.
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry if I interrupt.
No, only thing I wanted to say is they did him dirty, but they did my boy Show dirty too. Show is so
Oh my
good. Hot take.
God.
Show better than Yo. You Can Fight Me. I think he's an amazing psychologist, a great
I could
character
agree.
wrestler. Get him out of there. Get him out. Sorry, I'm done.
It's okay. I couldn't agree more, Colin, because I was a fan of Roppongi 3K. They were one of my favorite junior tag teams, though. But when Show turned heel, I was like, no. And then found out he went to join Bullet Club. I was like, yeah. And I was like, no. House of Torture, like, are you kidding me? That doesn't even fit the recipe for this. I don't know if I'm going to add that. Yujiro Takahashi. And, of course, Tokyo Latino Peter. She was always on Yujiro's corner because I know like she's like the eye candy in his corner, but also with Bullet Club though. And since like Yujiro did join the House of Torture, we don't see her like as much because I know she's busy doing like other things with the Carnival in Brazil though. But like it actually kind of like ruins like another like piece of like what Bullet Club is all about.
That's a
too.
great point. That's a
Yeah.
great point. I actually love Yujiro. People are going to be watching this going, God, Colin likes the shittiest people. But I actually love Yujiro. I think he rocks. I think his super limited in-ring moveset, flowchart, whatever you want to call it, is obviously completely on purpose. And it's part of his character that's been going for a long time now. But like you said, like the Peter thing was like, oh man, that was his shine. That was like really, really, really the best part of his gimmick. And it really worked well for him. So yeah, just take all the fun stuff, House of Torture. Go ahead.
And it amazes me that House of Torture is like still going. I'm just like, why? Can we just be done with this?
God, you're like it's just like I know they're trying to do this. So maybe this is all the desired effect. But like, you know, Dick Togo walks out and he undoes the turnbuckle and like, oh, the lights went out. Oh, what'll happen next? Oh, Show showed up with a wrench. Okay, cool. You know, like,
same shit,
and
different day.
And still have the Bullet Club logo next to their names.
Look, it's like, and you can do the same shit different day if it's good shit. I can, this is going to sound a little weird. I can watch Tetsuya Naito slow motion walk to the ring and undress for 5 minutes every match. Oh, it's good. It's very good. I think the second time I saw Dick Togo's repertoire, I was like, yo, I'm out. I'm good.
I feel like House of Torture is just such an eyesore like for the Bullet Club. And I mean for New Japan in general. And it's the same too, because Colin, it's like you say, I mean, Evil is a talented wrestler. Don't get me wrong. He's a very talented wrestler. But by God, does he need a fresh coat of paint and then some. But,
and he got one. And then it
just literally was taken away from him with a matter of months.
Matter of very short months. And months that went by ever faster because it was during the pandemic. And those years seemed like a blur. Oh, so annoying.
Yeah. And then you do get Jay White back into the fold of things. And I mean, you also have some very I think some really cool members join him. I mean, first of all, we got to talk about Bone Soldier. What about Taiji Hishimori, man?
Dude,
oh, I love me some Taiji.
Dude, he's nuts. He's absolutely nuts. I feel like he's such a strong addition. He was at the time and still is obviously to the junior heavyweight division, which is now stacked. It's now completely stacked and it's up to New Japan junior heavyweight standards. So they've always had a very high standard of junior heavyweight competitors. And Taiji Ishimori is part of that. And he's just like, he's my kind of guy. Like, yeah, okay, he wears like a dumb mask or whatever, like a skull mask. It's kind of cool, whatever. He's the Bone Soldier, but he doesn't wallow in that gimmick. He doesn't do cartoonish. He just wrestles like a 4'9" Superman. Like I love that dude.
Speaking of
Yes.
cartoonish, we got to talk about ELP, right?
Yes.
Dude.
I know, Sienna, you're a huge ELP fan.
Yep.
I mean, I like El Phantasmo. I can understand why some people would be kind of like, okay, come on now, this is silly.
I like
But-
El Phantasmo a lot. And that's not just because I'm Canadian. He has such charisma and he's such a great wrestler. And he does the whole I'm a great wrestler, but I'm not going to show you thing so well. And that I really like that psychology. You know, like he does the whole I'm going to do all these moves like this Ginyu Force type a dance or whatever, and you think I'm going to give him this crazy finisher and I'm just going to rake his back. I'm going to poke his eyes, right? And yeah, I know he does that a lot, and some people might say the same thing I just said about the House of Torture stuff, like, oh, it gets old. But I love the psychology of I'm a great wrestler, but fuck you. I'm not going to show you. I really like that.
True words could not be said about ELP, man.
Definitely.
Hey, another. Oh, go ahead.
And recently, was he not the voice of every fan going, you can't just become Bullet Club leader?
Yeah.
You can't just put on a shirt and call yourself the leader. Was he not saying what we all were thinking?
Yeah. And I mean, he is positioned right now in a very high profile match. And like I say, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like this point too, man, they're loading up on the juniors because we also got to mention he was there for a little while too. What about Robbie Eagles being a part of the Bullet Club as well?
I think, Robbie Eagles, I think he's amazing. I think he's very underrated. Quite frankly, I think he brings so much to any match he's in. Every time he's announced for a tour, I'm like, oh, sick. That's sick. I don't think, and this they use this in the storyline too. I don't think he was the best fit for Bullet Club. And maybe that was all on purpose. Maybe they did a really great job of making him not the best fit because we obviously know that he kind of abandoned them a little while later. But it didn't really work for me necessarily. He didn't need the club whatsoever. And the club was and arguably is bloated. And where at one point in time, joining Bullet Club would be like strapping a rocket to your back. At that point, I'm not going to say they were cement shoes because that would be a little silly, little hyperbolic, but they weren't, it didn't do them any favors, man. Wearing a Bullet Club shirt at that point in time, not a big deal.
Yeah, it wasn't, it didn't have the cool factor like it did a couple years prior. But,
no, you know why? Because it wasn't elite. It was it's like everybody, if everybody's in it, it's not cool, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah, you can't invite all the kids like to the party. It's kind of like it goes back again. We mentioned this earlier, the whole like look, and we talked about this last week with the NWO and like towards the end of their lifespan, and it was just like it just got so stupid and out of hand. So you had the Wolfpack against Team Hollywood, and then all of a sudden the Wolfpack forms, and they have the Wolfpack Elite, which holy shit, that just dawned on me. Fuck, did they? Wow. Because that's literally what it was called back in the day was Wolfpack Elite. Fuck, did they actually steal that name, the Elite, from WCW?
I would not be surprised because I know
like my mind just got blown.
The Too Sweet thing is obviously an overt reference, obviously. So I wouldn't be surprised.
That was crazy. But then you have like the B squad, they referred to it on like Team NWO Hollywood. It's just like it's the same kind of thing here with Bullet Club. But we do got to talk about one more member, my boy, Mr. Kenta, joining the Bullet Club, and I was so pumped just to see Kenta in New Japan in general. Like I've always been a huge fan of his. I go back to, and I know you do too, Colin, like Pro Wrestling nowadays, just how incredible of a run he had there.
He is. I'm trying to think of a word that will do him justice. I mean, he is phenomenal. He is a superstar. He is a world-class talent. I'm a really, really sort of like unashamed, like Kenta mark. He was putting on jaw-dropping, incredible matches over 20 years ago as a junior heavyweight in Noah, in a company that did not prioritize junior heavyweights in a
Yeah.
company that was about the heavyweight division, and everything else was at best secondary. And he and now Michi Marufuji changed the course of that in that company to a large degree. And he set a standard for decades with an S, multiple decades.
Yep.
I can't say enough good things about Kenta. And he came to New Japan, and his angle for joining the Bullet Club and turning was so satisfying and so good, and didn't feel cheap and rushed at all. And I just love that they paid him that kind of respect. And every time he works, I'm happy. And you know, it goes back to a couple Wrestle Kingdoms ago, even when he had that match against Tanahashi. I think I messaged you this the last time we did a show. I think I put it on my top 5, like, I almost said WrestleMania, top 5 Wrestle Kingdom matches to go and watch. Not top 5 best of all time. That's not what that, but it was like, hey, you know what? Last year, there was this insane hardcore match where Kenta almost died. Like, you should go watch it. It's amazing. And all credit to Tana as well. It's like, he gives 110%. You know how many dues this man has paid? You know how beat up he is? He's been everywhere, right? He's been everywhere on every coast and every organization you can think of. And you still know, if he shows up at Wrestle Kingdom, you don't want to go to the bathroom, you know?
No, not at all. And I was surprised, but I also at the same time a little happy, because I would think, like, Kenta is such an amazing performer. Like, I thought, okay, he's going to come in, they're going to make him the leader and stuff. But like, he stood his role as kind of like an enforcer right there, you would say. But
he's like a rogue in the gang.
Yeah,
he's like part of the gang, but he's kind of just like, well, I don't give a fuck. Like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, it's kind of like, look at the I don't know, I'm gonna go Star Wars on here. Look at the Empire, right? It's like, it's kind of like he's Boba Fett, man.
Yes,
that is Kenta. Kenta is Boba Fett, man.
Yes, like he'll hey man, if the money's right, sure, he'll hunt down Han Solo. You know, sure he'll go after that New Japan Strong title and, you know, torture John Moxley or whatever, right? But he is like almost in essence what I feel like a lot of Bullet Club should be, which is, he's like, hey, I'm here for me. I'm here for me. I'm here to get the money. I'm here to hurt people. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit at all, right? Like, he's kind of like a walking Bullet Club almost.
That's a perfect way of putting it, man.
And they made him so cool, dude. Like, they gave him the best trunks when he came back. I know that's such a weird thing to zero in on, but in Noah, he had these like brown trunks that they weren't good. But they gave him the best trunks, and like the Fang revives and the song he has, and like, he's just drips cool, dude.
The whole package aesthetically was so pleasing to the eye, and still is to this day.
Yeah.
Kenta, cannot say enough amazing things about him.
Yeah.
Kenta, if you ever watch this, please, we would like your book translated into English. Come on, brother. I want to read that.
Yes.
Oh, I gotta be honest, I didn't know he had a book. That, I bet.
Yeah, and they were using it like as kind of a prop for a while, and it was pretty funny. Like, he'd
I didn't see that.
You know, his opponent, he'd be like, "Oh, do you want a signed copy?" And he'd give it to them and like hit them with it or whatever, you know.
I didn't know that. Wow. That's freaking hilarious. So, hey, we got to go back here and talk expansion. And Sienna, I know you're going to be all the more familiar with this. Let's talk about how Bullet Club expanded into Impact Wrestling during this time.
That's right. That's right. So it was like during the pandemic of, like, you know, the whole travel advisory, like some members won't be getting into overseas because of the restriction at the time, though. But yeah, like, it's all started with this whole forbidden door aspect. Like, let's just wind it back, like, you know, with AEW, of course, when they announced Kenta appearing in AEW Dynamite, that's how everything imploded, starting off. And then from there on, you have the Good Brothers, like Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, once they were released from WWE because of this whole, like, you know, they were one of the few listed, and they went and came to Impact Wrestling. Even though they did their own, started as their own, but then they started to join within Bullet Club within a few months to it as well, under the guidance of Jay White. And that's where Jay White made a surprise appearance in Impact Wrestling And of course, like months later, Chris Bay did join Bullet Club as well, representing Impact Wrestling, and then later on down the line, Ace Austin. And I
Yeah.
think that the whole expansion with Bullet Club, like even though like things are starting to opening back up, but then in Japan they're still having that restriction going on at that time. You know, with the whole travel advisory too. I know they wanted to make sure that Bullet Club is like continuing on with the relevancy, especially the birth of like New Japan Strong here in the
Yes.
US too.
Man, that was a
But
good
yeah.
Best of Super Juniors, by the
Mhm.
way, the one that Ace Austin was in.
I agree.
He turned at the end of it. He joined Bullet
Mhm.
Club at the end of it. He worked like I guess not Hontai because that's like a New Japan performer, but like he worked like neutral, I guess you could call it,
Mhm.
throughout the whole thing. And he was really fun to watch. I think the Japanese fans, they seem to really, really gravitate towards him.
Yeah, and I want to kind of touch back here on something that you just mentioned, Sienna, New Japan Strong. Because for years, you know, New Japan was really like they knew about like all the fans they have here in North America. And it was just like, okay, let's just make a separate kind of like quote unquote
Mhm.
division, you know, whatever you want to call it, in North America. Let me ask you both this. Did Jay White, like how pivotal was Jay White very pivotal in helping put New Japan Strong on the map? Because I mean, you know, he worked in New Japan Strong for quite a bit.
I think you'd have to say so, and you'd have to say the same thing about a few guys though.
Well, that's true.
Kenta
Yeah.
included to go
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
Kenta. But you know, look, when you are a media company and you are
Mhm.
launching a new brand, you've got to get eyeballs on your brand and you've got to get stars in the room. And I don't know if it was ever going to be a success if they said, well, New Japan Strong are these guys from the LA dojo and, you know, some hired guns from around the wrestling world, and that'll be it. And they'll never touch, you know, never will the two meet. And that wouldn't have worked. And to be totally frank with you, I don't know if it works super well anyway. And I think part
That's
of the
fair.
reason, this is just my opinion, this is a totally subjective personal opinion. I don't think New Japan Strong necessarily lived up to its potential.
Mhm.
It didn't grab me as a hardcore fan, and that's a little worrying if you don't grab hardcore fans. And I try to get into it, but there's a lot of factors, some of which were not in their control, that I don't think helped them out. And I do think they could have used more Kenny Omegas, more Kentas, more people like
Yep.
that having a run in LA, you know?
Well, I
Agree.
gotta say, I definitely agree with you to a certain extent.
Mm.
I do feel like it's accurate in saying like it just hasn't quite lived up to the hype yet. Because I mean, just coming off that New Japan resurgence, so I think, in my opinion, if you classify those as strong shows, maybe you don't, whatever. I mean, that was one of the better shows I've seen that they put on here in North America.
But that's the thing. So when you say New
Mhm.
Japan Strong, right, you want to define, I think, what you're talking about. And I think just from a business perspective, maybe I shouldn't say business perspective, from a product perspective, New Japan Strong, as it was originally conceived, pitched, and executed, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. That's just a fact. There isn't that weekly show, and I don't think they were super successful with it. I think subjectively as a fan, they weren't super successful, and I also just think looking objectively, well, I don't know how they could be because it ended. Now, the rejuvenation of that brand through the one-off shows or the singular shows, I think is a much stronger position to be in. And maybe that's the way that they make the brand work. But it just didn't seem
Yep.
to work in its previous incarnation.
I think that is definitely a very fair assessment. Um,
But it was
Definitely.
also COVID, so shit. I mean, it was
yeah,
tough.
Yeah.
there's that aspect of it too. Yeah, you could only
Yeah.
do so
Yeah.
much, but
Yep.
And it's like something for the fans to definitely watch like during this sadness of the time, as I call it per se. But I would say the good thing about like, you know, for New Japan Strong, and it will be my personal favorite, like the Super J Cup. The
Mm.
Super J Cup was the one that actually gravitated the most. And that's where ELP did won the Super J Cup.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah, no, I actually, to your point, Sienna, I remember, and I had made up my mind about New Japan Strong at that point, but I remember tuning in, to watch that and watch ELP. So again, it's just such a simple formula. You've got to put stars in the room. You got to put wrestlers that I love in the room. Wrestling fans are sometimes they're some of the most accommodating and loyal fans you can have. I don't think a lot of wrestling businesses maybe they do completely appreciate how accommodating they are. A wrestling fan will go, I like this company. I'm going to support them. I'm going to watch the show. Am I enjoying it? I don't really know, but I'm watching it because I'm going to support it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people may have felt that way about New Japan Strong. Me, I just took a look at what Noah was doing that week.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, one thing with Jay White during his time as Bullet Club leader, a statistic I think is interesting too is that the fact that he was a 2-time IWGP heavyweight champion. So if you look at the history of Bullet Club, only AJ Styles, the only other leader to hold that IWGP championship twice.
And I can't believe he's a 2-time. Like when you said that out loud, like mentally, I feel like Jay White had the belt like 10 times.
Yeah.
He just did such a great job of storytelling around the belt. I really think Jay White's strength is his psychology and to an extent of the psychology, his promos as well. He's obviously a phenomenal wrestler. Like let's not pretend like you'd be an idiot if you said he wasn't. But I think what he brought to the table that was truly, truly, truly unique was that charisma and that personality. And I think that's part of why I sometimes think of his run on paper as more dominant than it was, because he did such a good job of that whole, like what I say comes true and I'm going to win the belt and I will 1000% win it and I'm coming for it and blah, 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 blah. He made that kind of impact, I guess.
And I think something else with Jay White's greatness, you got to look back. Other than Hiroshi Tanahashi, Jay White had Okada's number. I mean,
no doubt.
I mean, I think up until Wrestle Kingdom of this year, I don't think he had lost to Okada in Japan.
Yeah, it was what, 4-1, I think.
Yeah. The only time he ever lost to him was Madison Square Garden, which, remember, he single-handedly sold out.
I would never forget that fact. Single-handedly sold out, last rock and rolla, all that good stuff. But and now he still has an overwhelming winning record against the final boss of pro wrestling, which again, I think is really cool booking. I really like that. Like Jay White didn't win every match he wrestled, but it felt like it.
He did.
Right.
And I mean, I think, in my opinion, I don't know if you both will agree with this or not, I think Jay White is currently one of the greatest wrestlers going today as far as like a psychologist. Like the in-ring storytelling, he does is second to none. But I will say this, the AEW stuff, but I mean, time will still tell. It's still young.
Yeah.
But I think that's a problem of just like way too many people over there. But I think that'll change when you get this new show, obviously starting up in AEW.
Every time I'm on Twitter, somebody new is All Elite. Like, holy shit, guys, you've got about 50 titles and you've got about 1,000 wrestlers. The AEW fans are going to kill me now, by the way. I'm going to die.
It's okay.
It's okay. I mean, we love AEW as much as the next person, but don't get me wrong. But I mean, there is some cracks in that foundation. Let's call it spade
definitely.
a spade.
If you're a fan and you're passionate about something, it's really important to be critical, not overly critical, but exercise a critical mind. Like what I was saying earlier, I think wrestling fans have a tendency to go with momentum and inertia. And there's so much tribalism in wrestling, right? We're talking about factions. We're talking about a faction here. Well, that's not just a kayfabe thing. That's not just a storyline that happens on a pay-per-view. I think wrestling itself is extremely tribal now. Maybe more than ever. Yeah, maybe I'll say that. And it's like, you've got to be able to be an adult, step back and go, God, I love AEW. It's my favorite promotion. I'm going to support them no matter what. But I think they're doing a really poor job of insert complaint here, booking Rampage or, this guy or too many wrestlers or too many belts or whatever. And that doesn't mean you don't love AEW, and it doesn't mean they're not doing a great job. And it's why I have to be critical of New Japan sometimes, because sometimes I see stuff and I'm like, Gato, please, let's talk.
Yeah. It's like our good friend Hambone says with AEW is they are phenomenal at building somebody up and giving them a run but when it gets to the end of that plateau, wherever they're going, it's just like, well, what do we do with them now? As much as I love Hangman Page, and I mean, I still think he had a decent title run, but just not as magical as it was built up in my head.
That's a great way to phrase it. I'm curious though, Sienna, what your take is on Jay White, because I have a feeling, we don't know each other, but I have a feeling that you're probably more of a hardcore AEW fan than I am. So having both perspectives, I'm curious if you're giving him a passing grade or not.
I mean, the thing of it is that like Jay White had a match against Eddie Kingston at Battle in the Valley this past February, which I was there live, and
Nice.
And we all thought that him losing and leaving New Japan would be him being done with Bullet Club altogether. And I'm gonna get into the whole Dave Finlay stuff later on because I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
But then seeing Jay White going to AEW and then keeping like the Bullet Club goal continuing on, to me it's like, so he's not shying away from Bullet Club, but he just wanted to create it just for the AEW version of it. And at the same time, we're going to be getting another Civil War. What the hell is going on? And it seems that like they're just focusing on is just doing their own thing. And the only person that within Bullet Club goal is Juice Robinson, which he did join Bullet Club, like I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, like towards the end of last year. I think,
believe. Yeah.
I think earlier than that.
Okay.
Remember at Forbidden Door. Remember by the time Forbidden Door rolled around, which was what, late June, I think, June 25th, maybe, he was already rock hard.
That's
Juice
right.
Robinson.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And just remember the whole thing with the cursed United States title and the injuries. And remember he had it and he couldn't make that date and he released that. Yeah. I'm going into like this shit that doesn't matter, but like, he released that like Twitter video where he's like, well, I'm not, they say I couldn't make the date. I almost died. I forget what he had, pneumonia or something.
I remember.
Remember that? That was crazy. Like that whole thing was crazy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I have a question for you guys. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yeah.
Because I thought about this a lot before we knew where Jay White was going. Do you think that, given the fact that we all agree he's a charismatic storyteller who can work the mic, do you think he would have done better or as well in WWE?
I think at the time when he signed with AEW, like everybody else, it was kind of like scared shitless because, oh dear God, Vince is back. And I mean, the time still is like, let's put it this way. If Triple H is truly like sole creative, I think that would have been a phenomenal run. But if Vince McMahon is involved, he's going to turn him into some stupid, like a gardener or something, and just give him some stupid ass gimmick.
Dude.
Yeah.
Sienna, I have to preempt you because I just have to get this out. That you just reminded me of a friend of mine who's an AEW fan, and I've addicted him to New Japan. I've got given the gateway drug. We saw this stupid ass graphic on Twitter one time where someone photoshopped Jay White into a Willy Wonka poster, and it said Candyman Jay White.
Oh my goodness!
The tweet was like, "Why do you people want him to go to WWE? They're going to do some shit like this." And like, I just thought that was, I don't know why, I'm very juvenile. I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And to this day, we're always just like, it's Candyman Jay White. He's going to be the Candy Crusher. So yeah, I was thinking the same.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, like at the time where I was hoping that like, before this whole like news about Vincent Kenny McMahon is back in WWE, whatever, I was hoping for Jay White to go to WWE because I would feel like, with under Triple H being like in the sole creative aspect, he would have like done better, especially at the time AJ Styles was injured. He would have been like a kind of quote unquote substitute leader of the OC, reuniting um with Gallows and Anderson. And then of course you have like Mia Yim in it, which random by the way, it's WWE, but whatever. Anyway, and with Jay White, it would have been like much more sense. He would have been booked better, and especially like in my top of my mind because I do kind of like have like fantasy booking theories, whatever. Like having like his first feud, him versus AJ Styles, and then having like the feud like with Prince Devitt, now Finn Balor, since he's like the leader of Judgment Day. Like Jay White would have had a incredible run in WWE, but then like
Oh, I had a
dropped the
fantasy.
ball.
I had a fantasy booking like
Yeah.
before WrestleMania
Mhm.
39. I was convinced Cody was winning the belt, and the next night on Raw, Jay White was going to come out and be the first challenger. I was convinced in my mind. I was like, I want to see this. I want to manifest this. Obviously, that didn't happen, but
Yeah.
Boy, did it not.
no.
Yeah. No.
Well, as we know, Jay White would end up leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling,
Mhm.
and Sienna, we got to talk about it. I want to hear your thoughts
Yep.
on our new leader,
Mm.
David Finlay.
Yeah. So when I witnessed David Finlay attacking Jay White, in my mind, I was like, please don't tell me he's going to be the new member of Bullet Club. And then lo and behold, on the next show, new member. And then, of course, new leader, the Rebel. And I was like, this has got to be the most underwhelming moment ever. And it's like, I don't even see him as the leader type of Bullet Club. Like, I understand he wanted to revert back to where it was from years ago. And of course, mention about like, we're not some type of a t shirt model. He just wanted to like play fair and with members. Like,
Yep.
I was like, how can you make it work? You have House of Torture that's still under the Bullet Club tutelage, of course. And of course, Bad Luck Fale is focusing on New Japan Tamashi over in Australia, New Zealand, though. Of course, you have the Rogue Army, which they're also like under like the Bullet Club subwing too.
So that's a good question I want to ask.
Yeah.
Who the hell is in Bullet Club right now in New Japan? Like, I'm so confused by this.
Well, it depends on if you think House of Torture is Bullet Club, because
Yep.
whenever I do a TikTok video that touches on any of them, everybody has really strong opinions both ways. And they really, a lot of people out there speak like they know something secret behind the scenes, but Bullet Club is, it's at that NWO point where there's too many people. I mean, the
And
David
I don't hate David Finlay.
Oh
but I
God,
think,
no! Oh my God,
I don't
incredible
either. No.
athlete. Yeah, it's just this
I actually
is
really
a
like David
horrible
Finlay,
role for
conversely.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
He's not doing him any favors.
Nope.
Like, and it sucks because, what did I say throughout this whole show? Being leader of Bullet Club, brightest spotlight, biggest stage. Is David Finlay does he have the unfortunate designation of being the first man to step into a lesser spotlight on a lesser stage through no fault of his own, right? It's like, man, I think what was his first match as leader in Japan? It was a New Japan Cup like opening match, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe
yeah.
so.
Because I remember the entrance and it was just like, bro, are you kidding me? Like, I know I'm dribbling here. He had the dumbest ring gear, like these little, like,
yep.
He had these leather
Yep.
epaulets. Do you know what I'm talking about, Sienna? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And it was
No.
like, dude, that is extremely not intimidating.
He's trying way too hard.
Please, you're trying so, like, you might as well have a cape and a mustache, and
Yep.
Gato's trying to sprinkle his magic. I believe in Gato magic. He's trying to sprinkle his magic. He's got a catchphrase, right? The world need a rebel. I need a rebel. And it's like, I don't know that we do.
No, and I mean, who is like, okay, because I'm gonna say this. Let's just take all the subgroup bullshit out of it.
Okay.
So I mean, under him, it's I guess what we have Chris Bay and Ace Austin. We have
Yep.
Clark Connors now.
Yep.
Am I missing anybody else? Like, I mean, I guess okay, Ghetto, but
What you mean in like actual Bullet Club?
yeah, an actual
Oh
Bullet
yeah,
Club.
like
Let's see.
you're forgetting like
Owens.
Chase Owens.
Oh yeah, well, and I guess Kenta still, even though
100%
Kenta, yep.
Kenta. 100% Kenta.
yeah. I don't know. It's just it is a weird time for Bullet Club. Like, and now we've got this Bullet Club Gold going on in AEW.
Yeah.
I feel like that is purposely like gonna lead to a matchup at Forbidden Door. Is kind of in my gut. I feel like that's where we're going.
I hope so.
Me
I'm
too.
not like storyline wise, I am not super jazzed up about yet another internal conflict in Bullet Club. Like I'm kind of over it, but because of the people involved, I'm super down because it's going to be a good match or matches.
I will say this: I am intrigued to see like where Clark Connors goes from here because I think Clark Connors is an incredible performer.
That surprised me, by the way.
Yes, me too.
I was like, Clark Connors Bullet Club, like he's like squeaky clean, no?
Well,
you know,
oh, sorry about that.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, honestly, because David Finlay mentioned of bringing in a new member once, like they all kicked ELP out, and what happened at like I would say in Capital Collision, yeah, in the DC show, like I've noticed, like Clark Connors did turn heel and attack the DKC, and in the back of my mind, I was like, I have a feeling he's going to join Bullet Club. I knew it, and then lo and behold, David Finlay did reveal Clark Connors. So like, yep, I knew it though. And because I did follow Clark Connors' career since the LA Dojo days and then the gimmick, the Wild Rhino, I think it's like for him is like a good starting point for him since it's like his first actual faction that he actually joined. And of course, like him being like the Wild crap, I forgot the other one. No,
he's
the 100 Proof, yeah.
He's not Sienna, he's not still doing any of that Rhino stuff, is he? With Bullet
No,
Club,
not anymore. He's just called himself the 100 Proof.
You know what?
He did release the t-shirt, the Wild Club.
That's cool because I know he's just starting his career. It's no big deal, whatever. But like, dude, I don't know. I don't really see you getting over wearing some weird ass safari vest and hat and being like, I'm a rhino. Like, I'm like, I don't know about that, dude. Like, it's so that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely dropped it though. And like his match against Kevin Knight on the first night of the best of Super Junior tournament, that's actually the one where like, okay, this is how dead serious Clark Connors is. Especially shying away with that whole Wild Rhino gimmick and saying he is the 100 Proof.
Yeah. Honestly, like Bullet Club at this point, it's so hard to know where the ship is going, like where they're steering it. Like if you were cynical, you would say that it's being kept on life support because boy, does it move t-shirts and, bring in eyeballs to New Japan World. Although that's probably less true because they have lots of other things that bring in eyeballs to New Japan World now. If you were cynical, you'd say that. And there's probably truth to that. If you were a little more optimist, you'd say, well, they've done an amazing job with the faction over 10 years. Why not make it an unprecedented, 11, 12, 13 years? And it's pro wrestling. So, pencils have erasers. So we'll just, you could go either way. I'll just say this at this point, and this has been true for a long time. I'm like, I don't give a shit about Bullet Club. You know what I mean? Like as a fan who's been around for a long time, I'm like, it was great while it lasted. I got the t-shirt. I got the tank top, whatever, I didn't wear it for this occasion, neutral fan, whatever. But I'm a little over it unless somebody comes in who's here's what needs to happen. Nobody asked me this, but I'm still telling you. Here's what needs to happen. I said this in a video probably like 2 months ago, honestly. Bullet Club needs to go away for a while. And I mean, go away. It needs to not be a faction. It needs to dissolve. Something crazy has to happen. David Finley has to get like kayfabe killed or something. I don't know. You know, let's not
Blow him
let's
up
not
in
go
a
that far.
limo. That worked in the WWE so well.
What's eerie is that's what was in my head actually. So that's not. No, we don't have to go attitude era with it, but you know, they need to go away. So many
Yes.
of the best Bullet Club members don't need Bullet Club. Do you think Taiji Ishimori benefits from Bullet Club? I don't. Do you think Kenta would perform just as well and, you know, be just as charismatic and a great competitor without a Bullet Club t-shirt? I do. So they need to go away. And what happens when something goes away, guys? We miss it.
You miss it.
Yeah.
We miss it.
Nostalgia.
Here's what happens. Here's what happens. Bullet Club goes away for like a hot while, like a year or two, like at least a Wrestle Kingdom cycle, at least, right?
Yep.
One day at a big show, not Wrestle Kingdom, maybe like G1 finals, something like that. Somebody like Prince Devitt or AJ or Omega comes back with a small group of people and turns New Japan on its head and revives the real Bullet Club. That's what I think needs to happen.
I've got some crazy fantasy booking for you, Colin. Our good friend, the CDC, came up with this theory a couple months ago, actually several months ago. Like when all you had these factions breaking up, you know, like with the end of Suzuki-gun and whatnot. What if the ace of New Japan became the new leader of Bullet Club?
No, actually, I'm really against that. I'm really strongly against that. So this, to me, if this were to happen, this would be the ultimate American mentality invading Japanese wrestling. Sometimes I think that American wrestling fans really want swerves for swerves' sake, and they don't. I think American culture in general, not to get too high and mighty about it, is losing its ability to interact with long-term storytelling. We've all heard like attention spans are getting shorter. People make YouTube videos in a certain way. Everything's very repetitive. You binge Netflix. You know, nobody can wait for anything anymore. No, that doesn't exist. That literally doesn't exist anymore. You watch Stranger Things in a 18-hour binge, right?
Yep.
But what I love about ProRes at its core is really that kind of King's Road storytelling. And I know that term was coined in Noah, but make no mistake, New Japan uses King's Road. Everybody does. And, you know, God bless Giant Baba. I think that's what makes it so special. I want sometimes, guys, I really want the heroes to stay heroes. There's so much flip-flopping and heel turning, and I'm so badass and I'm so cool and I'm so current. Tanahashi is a walking institution. And yes, you know, certain fans are going to point out right now, well, Colin, you know, back in the day, actually he had quite an edge to him and he would work heel when he went to other promotions in Japan. Yes, that's true. But with his home promotion, for the vast majority of the time, he truly was Mr. Pro Wrestling. He is the Hulk Hogan. He's the John Cena, whatever you like. And
it's a perfect analogy because it's a similar thing with Cena. For years, fans clamored like, why don't you turn Cena heel? Why don't you turn him heel? It just didn't make sense. I mean, there's some things, and Colin, you hit it on the nail on the head. You don't turn them just because of like, oh, this would be a cool swerve. Like, there's got to be logic making sense. Like, the only thing I can see with Tanahashi is this. As Tanahashi is getting older, and it's not the same Tanahashi, but he still feels like it's his New Japan. It's kind of like almost a Vince McMahon-esque moment, you know, where if anybody's going to take down New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's going to be me and the Bullet Club. Like that type of craziness.
I like that. I actually think that's good psychology. I just don't want it to happen. It's like, I know I said Hulk Hogan and John Cena. You know what? It's like Stone Cold Steve Austin turning face. Or turning heel. Sorry, turning heel. Sorry. Turning heel. Like a true heel, not a I'm a badass, you know, attitude era guy. Like it didn't work insofar as people were so in love with him
Yep.
People were so in love with what he represented. And Tanahashi to the nth degree, because he's been doing it his whole career. It would break my heart a little bit. So I hope that your friend's booking doesn't come true.
Fair enough. So
Yeah.
here on Learning the Ropes, we always love to do a segment called Fantasy Warfare. So I thought, how perfect would it be if we do a trios 4-way match where you have now we're talking Bullet Club Jay White era. So let's say Jay White with 2 members against the Judgment Day, the OC, and the Elite. And I'm not sure who the members would be for Bullet Club. I mean, we obviously know Gallows and Anderson with AJ. We obviously know Damian Priest and Dominic with Judgment Day, and of course the Bucks and Kenny. But I guess it would just depend, like who would. Well, you know what? The hell with. Let's just say Gorillas of Destiny. Let's put Gorillas of Destiny with Jay White.
Jay White.
Mm,
I'll ask a question. I want to
Yeah.
hear what Sienna says, but I'm going to ask a question here. Because this is like when you say, like, oh, who wins, Batman or Superman?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is
Go
there
ahead.
anyone at or around ringside? Is Gato there?
The elements, if you
Mm.
will. Well,
That's a good question.
since there is going to probably be some shenanigans, let's say
Yes.
Ghetto is there.
Heck
Is that the
yes.
deciding factor?
I would say he will be not there at first, but then
then he
midway
shows
in the
up.
match, he'll
Yeah.
show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How do
Mhm.
you see it going down, Sienna? If you have a series of events.
So if I would say, like, we're going back to like XLJ's question about fantasy, like which 2 members, Jay White, Tamatonga, and I'm adding Kenta in the mix too.
Ooh, I like
Midway
that
to
even.
the match, you'll have Jay White being tagged in, and of course AJ Styles and of course Prince Devin, Finn Balor, whatever, in the middle, and then halfway towards, like, AJ Styles was about to do, of course, the phenomenal forearm, Gato came in, caused a distraction. And that's where the sneak attack happens.
And
I
then
think
what happens?
And then, of course, Prince Devin will, and then, of course, Prince Devin will accidentally push Gato off from Jay White, and of course, the match will continue on. Which is kind of like, a thing of like, well, it'll end in a kind of like in a cheating, distracting way, or like the match will continue on aspect too. Because like for me, honestly, I'm kind of like 50-50 when it comes to like clean finish or like a dirty
There's
finish. So
no way there's a clean finish
yeah.
here. No
I was
way.
gonna say
Yeah.
with Bullet Club, it can't
Mm,
be. And I think
yeah,
I
in the
think that
middle.
on paper we would all think like, oh, okay, the dominance of Kenny and like the Bucks, or
Hmm.
the dominance of AJ Styles, or the dominance of Prince Dev. But I think somehow where there's a will, there's a way, because he's the ultimate
Hmm.
mastermind. I think Jay
Yeah.
White would and that team. I think they would get the win.
Mm.
Okay, here's how it goes down in my head. I like both your scenarios, but here's how to me it goes down in true Bullet Club cluster fuck fashion. Okay, there's a million run-ins, and you don't know
Mhm.
who's on whose side. People get thrown
Mhm.
out of the ring. Gato runs in. He gets tossed out by whoever. Blah 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 blah. We get down to what we think is going to be a clean finish, and I agree it's Jay White. He has, through completely devious psychological means, not necessarily cheating, but like not clean wrestling, has somehow maneuvered himself into a position where he's going to get a pinfall he probably doesn't deserve. Then I think the big surprise swerve happens, and it's not a swerve for the sake of a swerve. I just complained about that, so it's not that. Where you have the original Bullet Club now all on different teams. You've got Prince Devitt. He rallies Carl Anderson and Tamatonga, who are on opposing teams each. They look at each other across the ring. They run in and they give Jay White some kind of 3-man, you know, some kind of power bomb, some kind of awful superplex, like something that like he dies basically. You know what I mean? They all throw up the too sweet. There's obviously a pregnant pause. Holy fuck, are we gonna do this, boys? And then it's too sweet, and then they walk off and they win the match. That's how I see it.
I like it. Like
Nice.
that. All of these scenarios, I think, would be incredible, and I
Nice.
would love to see. So,
That one's just fan service for like old fans like me. So I don't know if they would actually do that,
Yeah.
but
oh my god, it would be great. I would be like eating it like a kid eating like a bowl of cereal, like watching Saturday morning cartoons or something, man. I'm telling you.
oh,
Like,
dude.
give me that. So,
Yes.
as we're coming down to the close here of tonight's episode, I want to ask you all this. What is the legacy of the Bullet Club? And I'm talking overall, not with the current state of affairs. I mean, obviously that a part of the history, but I mean, let's just talk about overall what Bullet Club has done for New Japan Pro Wrestling as well as professional wrestling.
I do want to say this with Bullet Club, it actually brings more of like the Western side of the audience, more exposure of New Japan Pro Wrestling, especially like, you know, with different members of Bullet Club that came from like different companies beforehand. And that's how like these wrestling fans starting to introduce to like brand new companies instead of like solely on like one or two company because there's more options. And I think that, you know, without like, you know, like with Prince Devitt, AJ Styles, Kenny Omega, Jay White, and now David Finlay, nobody's not gonna know about New Japan Pro Wrestling. And that's how
That's a good
I
point.
discovered Bullet Club. Well, New Japan is through Bullet Club. Yeah.
That's a fair point. I think that's true for a lot of people. That's for a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's an interesting alternate universe to imagine no Bullet Club. Where's New Japan in the global
Mhm.
scale now? Does AEW exist, et cetera, et cetera? I think the legacy is twofold. I think one part is exactly what Sienna said. It's bringing a global audience to New Japan. It's expanding pro wrestling's horizons. It's opening people's eyes. I mean, it's the reason people like me are able to make content and help other people get into the scene, you know, and that's in large part due to Bullet Club. But I think there's another part. I think that Bullet Club's legacy is proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can create a phenomenon in the culture of pro wrestling without being part of WWE in any way, shape, or form. When Bullet Club was formed 2013, when they took off like a rocket ship in 2014 onward, 2016 probably peak popularity year maybe, we were long removed from the days of WCW Nitro being an alternative to Monday Night Raw. Long removed. So far removed that many fans, I mean, I was a kid, many fans, they don't have that experience. They weren't around. They weren't watching wrestling in 1996. So WWE is so fantastic and expert at you know, creating their own ecosystem and making it insular and very, 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 very isolationist that for a long and you know, the likes of TNA and stuff, I mean, they're not creating global phenomenons. No disrespect. I just don't think that's hard. It's hard to argue. You know, Bullet Club came along and they were like, this pro wrestling faction from Japan with not people from WWE or headlined by WWE in it is now everywhere. Bullet Club shirts are at WWE shows. They're at TNA shows. They're at indie shows. You see guys walking around with Bullet Club gear at the mall, right? You really did.
Yeah.
And it was just, it just cracked the egg, man. It was just
Really
like,
did.
whoa, there's a whole world out there and it's all a big deal. And I'm going to go watch Wrestle Kingdom now. Actually, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this symbol right here, this is right up there in the lexicon of professional wrestling symbols, like, you know, the broken skull with Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's up there with the
Yes.
NWO.
It is.
It is up there with so many other great symbols. The Brahma Bull for the Rock, and goes on and on. I mean, it's like you say, Colin, like you could be walking through the mall, you see somebody in Bullet Club gear, you throw it up, you know, you're too sweet. It's just like, man, it's universal is the best way to put it. And I mean, Bullet Club's impact has just been it has been phenomenal. No pun intended. With AJ Styles.
The phenomenal one, yes.
Yes. Well, as always, as we get down to the wire here and we finish up learning this episode of Learning the Ropes, of course, we thank you all for joining us tonight, but we got to get in one last Plug-a-Palooza. And I want to give the floor to both of you. I'll start with you first, Sienna, because I know you got a ton of stuff going on. Go ahead, promote your stuff.
All right, so you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and on my TikTok page at Sienna_Chanel. I also have a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Sienna_Chanel, which I do gameplay, mostly WWE 2K23, while, vibing out to my friends and whatnot. I'm also part of a collective, wrestling content creator network called The Main Event Players. We're on all social, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on the Twitch channel as well too. Also, I'm part of the Pro Wrestling 60 team, covering Bullet Club segments and other stuff as well too. Make sure to follow Cole TV, subscribe to this channel, of course, and also follow South Bay Championship Wrestling. I am the newest backstage social media correspondent though, so make sure to follow South Bay Championship Wrestling on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter as well. We will be getting a TikTok channel and a YouTube channel very soon, so stay tuned to follow.
Heck yeah, and you're killing it right now too, my friend. Like, you did such a phenomenal job this past Saturday, like with the backstage segments. You hit a home run. It was awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome. What was your TikTok again? I'm going to follow you right now.
Sienna_Chanel. That's my username right there on the bottom.
Yep.
Oh, you saw it? Oh, at the bottom of this. I was like, did you see my screen already? What the hell?
The bottom is
watching you, brother. I always
Yeah.
feel like somebody's watching me. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yes, the stuff you're doing right now, it's pretty awesome. And Colin, I know you got a lot going on as well, my friend. Your content is second to none on all social media platforms. I know you're going through and trying to find her. So I'll plug my stuff while you're doing that, if that's okay. So don't forget, this week on Cole TV, it is our Memorial Day weekend extravaganza. You joined us here tonight for Learning the Ropes. You can catch a replay of our Night of Champions prediction show, as well as Friday night movie night, which was pretty hilarious, pretty chaotic. I highly recommend you check it out, especially if you like Chuck Norris films, because that is pretty awesome. Oh, we just lost Colin. That's a bummer. Hopefully we can get him back in here real quick. And of course, tomorrow, don't forget to tune in here at noon Eastern Standard Time for our AEW Double or Nothing prediction show. We're really looking forward to that, which will take place tomorrow night. And don't forget to join us here Monday night for a special live edition of Pro Wrestling 60, where we're going to cover everything that happened in the world of professional wrestling this past week in 60 minutes or less. And it is going to be a daunting challenge because we got not 1, 2, 3, but 4 major pay-per-view events essentially to cover. So check us out, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday night here on Cole TV. And as always, if you want to get some merch, support us, head on over to sweetdollfacecreations.bigcartel.com, where you can get not only our merch, but some of your other favorite Wrestle Talk content creators like the Wrestle Talk Wolfpack. Dad Hat's got some shirts over there, and so many more. You can get a Learning the Ropes shirt. You can get a Cole TV shirt and hat. And also, yes, Chubby, my beloved dog, has a shirt there.
Chubby.
And Chub Life. So, well, Sienna, I want to thank you so much for being our guest here tonight. I want to thank Colin. Unfortunately, we lost him, but Colin, as always, you're incredible. And please follow Colin on all of his social media platforms. I mean, he is a genius when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's so well spoken. It's always a true honor and pleasure to have him on with us here on Learning the Ropes. So, folks, let's go wrap it up for this special Saturday night episode. And hey, one more plug here. Don't forget, we are moving over we're moving over to Thursday nights, effective here in a couple weeks. I think the first episode, I believe it is June the 1st, maybe, or no, it's June the 8th. June the 8th is the next episode of Learn the Ropes, and we'll be on a new time and a new night on Thursday nights. So, Well, folks, that's going to wrap it up. Once again, thank you so much, Sienna. Thank you, Colin. And folks, we will see you tomorrow here at noon on Cole TV for our Double or Nothing predictions. Oh, wait a minute, real quick. We got Colin back. Let's bring him back in. Yay!
Yay!
We were like getting ready to we were plug some of your stuff, but please go ahead and plug some of your stuff, Colin. If you can hear us. I don't know if he can. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. We're having some. Oh, okay. So, well, this is a fun way to end the show. But unfortunately, it looks like his mic's not working. But we love you, Colin. Oh, yay! There he is.
Yay!
Yes.
I can't believe you guys are still here. I did not expect that. My computer blue screened the second I was about to say something, so that was cool. And then obviously my mic didn't work when I came back on. Serious apologies for that.
Quite all right.
I'll be super quick. Thank you so much for waiting, by the way. If you enjoy pro res content, that's Japanese pro wrestling content, if you want to learn more about it, if you want some forbidden doors cracked open, if you're an OG fan and you just want to talk about it and relive some great stuff from modern New Japan to 90s All Japan to 2000s Noah, well, check out Wrestling Colin on most social media platforms. I publish short form video on TikTok all the time. I have a very high standard of quality. It's what I do for a living in other spheres. And I also have a YouTube channel where I publish on shorts. I also publish long form documentaries. I have a documentary on a 26-minute documentary on Keiji Muto. I published around his retirement. I hope to do more of those. And I have since joined Instagram. You'll see the same content you see on TikTok, but TikTok might not be relevant forever. So I decided better diversify. So if you just search Wrestling Colin on all of those, get ready because I got content for you.
There you have it. Well, Colin, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Sienna, thank you so much. You both are amazing. Love having you on the show. Can't wait to do it again so we can talk some more New Japan or any type of Japanese wrestling as far as I'm concerned. I'm ready to do a deep dive on All Japan from the 90s, my friend. That's probably my favorite.
Guys, if you like New Japan now, I got news for you. There's better. There is better. And there's multiple better. Okay? All Japan from the 90s, Noah from the early mid 2000s. Whoo! I'm ready. I'm ready anytime we do a deep dive.
Let's do it. Well, in the immortal words of Booker T, shucky ducky, quack, quack. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Thank you again for Wrestling Colin. Yes, let's get a final Too Sweet in there. Too Sweet. And please don't forget to check them out on all their social media platforms. And like I say, we will see you here tomorrow on Cole TV, noon Eastern Standard Time for our Double or Nothing prediction show. Everybody have a great night.